It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of December 12th, 1997, and we've got some really interesting movies to talk about. I was about to say really good movies, and we have some good movies here, but also some notable films that are not quite as good and some that are just downright terrible. We've got a good assortment coming your way here, so let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, coming almost a year after the original film came out, the sequel to Scream, Scream 2.
Let's get down to business. The way I see it, someone's out to make a sequel. You know, cash in on all the movie murder hoopla. So it's our job to observe the rules of the sequel.
What are you talking about?
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to make a successful sequel. Number one, the body count is always bigger. Number two, the death scenes are always much more elaborate. Carnage, candy.
How do we find the killer, Randy? That's what I want to know.
Well, let's look at the suspects. There's the obvious boyfriend, Derek.
So you think it's Derek?
Not so fast. Forget the boyfriend. It's tired. Who else do we got?
There's
Mickey, the freaky Tarantino film student. But if he's a suspect, so am I. So let's move on.
Maybe you are a suspect.
Well, if I'm a suspect, you're a suspect.
You have a point. Okay, let's move on.
Because the first Scream movie was such a big success, Dimension Films decided, screw it, let's make another one. And I think they already had another script ready to go, is after the first movie came out. I could be wrong on that, but then again, this did come out a year after the original Scream, so it wouldn't be surprising if they already had a sequel already planned for this. This takes place 2 years after the first movie. You follow Sidney again, once again played by Neve Campbell, and other survivors of the Woodsboro Massacre at this fictional Windsor College, where they're targeted by a copycat killer using the disguise of Ghostface. And like its predecessor, they combine the violence of the slasher genre with elements of comedy, satire, whodunit mystery, while also satirizing the cliches of film sequels, which is the logical step this series should take. And really, it makes this probably one of the best horror sequels you'll ever see, because they really delve into the satirical elements and deal with the cliches of the film sequel. I mean, you see it in that little teaser alone, but the movie overall is just really damn good. It's a really solid sequel that's surprisingly slightly better than the original film. I mean, the cast once again works off each other very well here. You have Campbell back, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Jamie Kennedy's back in here. You have Sarah Michelle Gellar, Laurie Metcalf, Jerry O'Connell, Elise Neal, Tim Oliphant, Liev Schreiber, Jada Pinkett's in here as well. I mean, good cast overall here, and it just works to all the advantages that Scream had, but does it even better. Like, the music is a lot better, the storytelling is much better, the comedy is much better, the elements of horror are really good in here. Like, this is why I became invested in these first two movies, and sadly after that, these films just just kept moving away from me so much that I didn't really want to see the other films, even these newer films. But I always remember the first and second movie. The second one, I think, is one of the best sequels that I've ever seen. One of the best horror sequels of all time. I mean, I can't really think of a. It would be a long discussion for me to have, talking about some of the best horror sequels out there, because there really aren't that many horror sequels that are better than the original film. There are a few, but most of the time it's a success, and so they just rehash the same story from the first movie again. But this one, they actually do take it to another level, and it really does work here. The elements work on so many levels. The casting overall is great. The writing is top-notch. The direction is once again very good. It's a really solid film. I mean, you could tell that Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson had a good idea of what they wanted to do for the sequel, and they make it work here. It works incredibly well. I don't think I have any more to say about this one. It's one of the best sequels I've ever seen. Like, it's one of the best horror sequels of all time, too. Why am I pausing all the time? But, yeah, it's one of the best horror sequels I've ever seen, man. This is a great, great film. If you haven't seen Scream 2, you're doing yourself a huge disservice by not doing so. I'd say watch the first two Scream movies, and then maybe go back and go check out the other Scream films as well, which we'll slowly but surely get to here as we keep moving forward here. But I always remember the first two movies being the most memorable out of the bunch, but we'll see what happens. Maybe Scream 3 and 4 are actually a whole lot better than I ever thought they were, or Maybe not. Maybe they're just not. But I'm looking forward to Scream 5 and 6 though. Once we get to those films later on down the road. But anyway, so that's Scream 2. Let's go ahead and move on to another horror movie. Well, I guess not really a horror movie. It's a horror. It's not even a horror comedy, I should say. But the horrors of watching Tim Allen and Kirstie Alley in a story you've seen done to death, for richer or poorer.
Their marriage was cold. If you want out, just say out. Their accounts were frozen.
Oh, that IRS!
But now,
I come in peace.
they found a new family
Surprise!
with a cause of new skills.
I'm domestically challenged.
We can do this. And the love
It's been a long time since she opened her barn for me.
they thought they lost.
Did you ever really love me?
Yeah.
Tim Allen, Kirstie Alley, for richer or poorer. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
Hi, Doc Hollywood. Hi, Cars. Hi, Did You Hear About the Morgans? Hi, every single movie with the same plot that you know is going to be... It's going to go the same way you think it's going to go. I mean, you have Tim Allen and Kirstie Alley as this New York socialite couple. They decide to end their relationship because they can't stop bickering at one another. But at the same time, their accountant steals their money through mismanagement and filing tax returns. But then again, when you hire Newman as your accountant, that's more than likely going to happen. And I'm not kidding. Wayne Knight plays their accountant here. And I mean, be honest, Newman would probably do that in real life if he was handling Jerry's accounts like that. Or then again, Jerry would be smart enough to never let him touch his money. But you know what happens here? The IRS is after them, and they've got to hide out somewhere where nobody's going to find them. And in this case, they hide out in Amish country. And yeah, this is a film that just if you really, really do not know what's going to happen in this movie, you have clearly just started watching movies, because this is a story that's been done to death for years now. Doc Hollywood perfected it. You know, Cars was okay with it. Then we get stuff like Did You Hear About the Morgans? And we have a lot of movies with this same type of storyline. You have people that are in trouble with the law, or a mobster wants to kill them, so they got to hide out somewhere. It's like nothing about the story is new or unique. Maybe it could have worked if the actors were trying, and the actors were trying to give this a little more weight to it, but they're not doing that. Tim Allen and Kirstie Alley are just doing it so they can cash a paycheck. I mean, Kirstie Alley was just coming back with Veronica's Closet, and Tim Allen was bordering on the end of his run with Home Improvement. But this is actually one of the few films from the Home Improvement era where Tim Allen did a film that wasn't produced by Disney, so I guess that's something interesting. It's hard to believe this director's best work is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie. This is directed by the same guy that did that, McHale's Navy, and I guess to his defense, this is probably his second best movie out of the three, but then again, that's not really saying all that much. And there's a lot of good talent involved here. Michael Werner, Wayne Knight, Larry Miller, Miguel Nunez, Megan Cavanaugh, Carrie Preston, Marla Maples has a cameo in here, Michael Angarano, Michael Angarano, I think I'm pronouncing that right, but yeah, there's people in here that you know can make some of this material work, but maybe not Marla Maples. I guess that was probably in there just for a cameo, but it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but from what I remember from it, I don't really like it all that much, and it's basically, you can pretty much see why it is. It's a story that's been done to death. There's nothing about it that makes it unique or make it stand out on its own. It's a terrible, terrible movie. Like, it's a mess of a film. And this was one of the straws that broke the camel's back for the Bubble Factory, the company that was owned by the former head of Universal, Sidney Sheinberg, because after this, he eventually went off with Sony Pictures, and his career didn't get any better than that. So, yeah, I don't like this movie at all, and you can see why. It's a story that's been done to death so many times, and it's just like, it's not going to do anything different than what they're doing there. I'm just killing time right now, so that's For Richer or Poorer. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and you know what? For Richer or Poorer is actually looking a lot better than our next movie, which is Home Alone 3.
$1 million for the microchip, Mr. Beaupre.
We will find it. Their mission is deadly.
Has to be on a plane.
We are going to Chicago. Their technology is state-of-the-art.
26 miners in the 14 houses we haven't checked.
Their strategy is unheard of.
We're gonna work houses in broad daylight.
It's the suburbs. Nobody's home during the day. They've got the perfect plan. That's the house. Tomorrow we hit. He's got the chicken pox.
What?
And he's home alone.
Nobody's gonna do anything about this? I'll just have to do it myself.
I'll go in the front.
Heads up! Ouch. Bye. Surprise.
I'm coming down.
From John Hughes, the writer and producer of Home Alone.
See ya.
This Christmas, staying home will become an adventure. Again. Home Alone 3.
Wait till you see what I do next.
Written by John Hughes. Directed by Raja Gosnell.
Ah, yes, Home Alone 3. This is in my list of the worst movies I have ever seen. This is number 17 on the list of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I've said in the past, I've loved the other Home Alone movies. The first one is definitely the best film. Home Alone 2, at least, is trying to capture some of that same magic. It's not as good, but it's not terrible. And really, there's a lot of things that you could have done that was much more interesting for a third film with the original cast. You could have had a plot where, you know, Marv and Harry get out of prison again, and Kevin realizes they're out, and this time he convinces the rest of the family to help him defeat the burglars. Like, that would have been something that you could have easily done to give the series some new life to it. And I think they tried to do that in other sequels that came after this to not the best success. But then again, you didn't have the original cast there, and at least with that idea, you could have done something cool with it. But no, we have what I'd like to consider the awakening point of Raja Gosnell. The point when he realized his purpose as a director in life, because this is his first movie as a director after many years as an editor, working on the first 2 Home Alone movies, and more than likely, he was brought in to create a simple cash grab with no creativity or edge whatsoever, and Gosnell probably looked at this and said, wait, I can put 0 effort into a movie and I can make money? I'm going to do this for the rest of my career, and lo and behold, Big Mama's House, Scooby-Doo 1 and 2, Yours, Mine, and Ours, Beverly Hills Chihuahua, The Smurfs 1 and 2. I mean, this dude clearly does not give a fuck about putting effort into any of his projects at all. And Home Alone 3 is where it all began. And don't get me wrong, Alex D. Linz, the kid is not a bad actor. He's actually gone on to do some pretty decent roles in films, including actually voicing Hey Arnold in Hey Arnold and Tarzan, young Tarzan in the Disney movie. And to his credit, he's not bad in this. He wasn't whiny or trying to be too cute like Jake Lloyd in Jingle All the Way was. But the kid was trying, and he didn't do too bad of a job. But again, he's no Macaulay Culkin. The bad guys in this movie are the worst. They really went all the way out to find the closest look-alike to the actors they wanted to get. Like, you could tell that Bill Preet was supposed to be Oliver Platt. Jernigan was supposed to be David Schwimmer. Unger was clearly supposed to be Adam Carolla. The other one that actually wasn't looking like he was trying to copy another actor was Alice, but I don't know. Maybe you could have probably put Linda Fiorentino in that mix in there. But besides that, these are supposed to be these terrorists, and were they terrorists? I mean, basically, yeah, they were terrorists, but they're intimidated by this kid, a kid with chickenpox, no less. And guess what the worst part is? These are 4 professionally trained terrorists, and yet they get their asses handed to them so easily by this kid with chickenpox. Like, you could believe that Kevin could beat up Marv and Harry, because those 2 robbers, they weren't the smartest people out there, although Harry does claim to be that way, but these 4, they were clearly shown to be much smarter than Martin and Harry, but they still got their ass beaten by this defenseless kid who was sick. And on top of that, these traps get way more elaborated and over the top than they needed to be. Like, you could take absurdity in a movie like this just fine, but even I have my breaking point with this. There are traps in this movie that are so elaborate, you really have to wonder to yourself, how the hell does this kid that has chickenpox have the will and ability to do this? There's no way this kid would clearly have A, enough energy, B, enough time, and 2, the muscle strength to actually do this, to pull the feats off that he does in this. Like, you see him moving trampolines over to pools, you see him with a bookcase full of books that he put up there, you see him making sure he has the ability to put 2 Mega Block bins full of super glue and a piece of wood and a mousetrap. It's just like, come on, man. Like that's just getting ridiculous on its own part. It's just like, and that leads me to the biggest problem with the movie overall, and the reason why I hate it so much. Everybody in this movie is stupid. Not just the bad guys, not just the parents, not just the brother and sisters, the FBI and the police too. Everybody in this movie is a fucking dumbass. You know, Alex does the smart thing in this movie by calling the police to report these terrorists breaking into these houses, and yet these terrorists manage to sneak their way out of the neighbors' houses like they are the Flash or Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, I swear, they must be ninjas in their off time. But after the first day, no cop ever goes, maybe we should bring one of our officers out on the street here to keep an eye on the neighborhood. And just like, nope, just assume it's a prank by the kid with chickenpox because, oh, he's the run of the family, he's the youngest, he's the troublemaker, even though there's clearly nothing that shows beforehand why he's that way. Like, and then the second time it happens, he calls the police again, and once again, they do it. The bad guys get away so easily. Nobody sees them. No cameras around whatsoever. Clearly, this is a town that does not believe in being safe, apparently. And you know what happens? The cops don't believe him again. Even his asshole siblings, one of them being a young Scarlett Johansson, starts giving him shit. And it's just like, I'm sorry, but you cannot do that. Just because this kid is gravely sick, which, by the way, nice parenting by leaving the damn kid with chickenpox home on its own. That does not mean he's full of it when he's clearly seeing a robber going to somebody's house. But no, we have to do this because clearly if we don't, we wouldn't have a damn movie, and then who really wants to see a Home Alone sequel without the original cast or the original comedy or John Hughes at his finest? Because yes, this was when John Hughes was at the shit end of his career, and without the will to insult the audience's intelligence like this. Oh right, everybody's thinking that like Kevin was not the nice kid. Like, he could be a little bit of a dick, even though his family around him were being dickish to him. At the same time, though, like, when they realize that he's home alone and he's away from them, they still at least care about him. Like, in this movie, it just makes no sense at all. And don't even get me started on the animals they try to bring in as comic relief in here, like the back-talking pair that only quotes pop culture references. Like, literally, every single thing he says is a pop culture reference. And a mouse, because honestly, that would take me hours to tell you how bad that is, and we need to wrap this up. Oh, and there's a dog that does a little stupid move with where the cops come in, and there's a dog there, and the cops are just like, freeze, and the dog's just like, it's like with his paw up in the air. It's just like, get out of here with that. Like, Home Alone 3 is just an insult to everything that made the first two movies so special. They clearly had no intentions on making a good third movie for the series. It's made on the sole purpose to continue the franchise until this horse is long dead and willing to be beaten alive, which they have done. And, the last couple of movies have been really, really bad, especially 4 and 5, but I'm one of the few people that says Home Sweet Home Alone is actually not that bad. It's not a great movie, but I will gladly take Home Sweet Home Alone after anything from 3, 4, or 5. Like, Home Alone 3 is just everything that's wrong with everything. It's everything that's wrong with kids' movies today. It's just lazy. The best word to describe that movie, laziness. It's uninventive, uninspired. It's a pale imitation of its predecessors. It's The Hangover Part 3 and Taken 3 of kids' movies. It's just so awful. I hate this movie so much. It's in my top 20 of the worst movies I've ever seen, and for good reason. So let's try to get back on a more positive note here. Here's Steven Spielberg's Amistad.
They were first detained by officers of the survey brig off the coast of Long Island to charge us murder. Immediately surrender these villains!
This is the most important case ever come before this court. Because what it in fact concerns is freedom, the very nature of man. And the proof is the length to which a man will go to regain it once taken. He will break loose his chains. He will decimate his enemy. He will try and try and try against all odds, against all prejudices, to get home.
Morgan Freeman, Anthony Hopkins, Jaimin Hansu, Matthew McConaughey. A Steven Spielberg film. Amistad. Starts December 10th in select theaters, December 12th.
Okay, maybe it's not the best movie to follow it up with, but at least it's certainly a million times better than Home Alone 3 was. Amistad is based off the events of in 1839 aboard the Spanish slave ship La Amistad, during which Mendi tribesmen are abducted for the slave trade, maintained to gain control of the capital ship off the coast of Cuba, and it follows the international legal battle that followed the capture by the Washington, a U.S. revenue cutter, and the case is ultimately resolved by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1841. You see the cast in there: Matthew McConaughey, Morgan Freeman, Anthony Hopkins, a breakout role by Jaimin Hansu, Pete Postlethwaite, Nigel Hawthorne, Chiwetel Ejiofor appears in this as in a cameo. This was Steven Spielberg's attempt to try to capture the same magic that Schindler's List did. I mean, he made this around the same time he made The Lost World Jurassic Park, and the story was he made Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in the same year, and both those movies ended up great. And then you think maybe, if Lost World wasn't that great of a movie, then surely Amistad's got to be the true masterpiece of the year. And not quite as much as I love Steven Spielberg. This is one of those films that's kind of on the same length as something like Empire of the Sun and Always. Not necessarily bad movies, but just movies that are not as good as some of his really, really great works here. I mean, this is still a really good movie, and I think it works mostly because of the cast that's involved here. Morgan Freeman, Anthony Hopkins, Matthew McConaughey, breakout performances for Djimon Hounsou and Chiwetel Ejiofor. But the story and the overall setup has been done to death. It's kind of a similar story we've seen over and over again, which I think is perfected a little bit better in something like 12 Years a Slave later on, which Ejiofor was in that course. But as far as the film itself goes, it's fine for what it is. It's not a bad movie at all. Like I wouldn't even go as far to say it's a terrible movie. It's still a really good film. But compared to what Spielberg has done that's been much better than this, you kind of expect a little bit more from him. And I think it works fine for what it is, but it definitely could have been a whole lot better. I think there could have been more to really give this an extra length, an extra push to really make this one of the best films of the year. But as it is, it's a really good, competently made Steven Spielberg movie. It's not one I'd watch over and over again, but I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I could say that Steven Spielberg still makes a decent film, even though this isn't one of his strongest films. It's still a very good, solidly made film. I just think it needed that one extra push to really push itself to become one of the year's best films. But as it is, it's okay for what it is, but definitely could have been a whole lot better. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is the hockey comedy Les Boys.
La brasserie pas encore à toi, Néo. T'as pas encore gagné mon baptême. T'as pas encore gagné, Néo. Les boys, hein, on est beaux de tempo. On est premiers sa rondelle. Faut surtout pas oublier de mettre la bière dans le frigidaire.
I thought this was a French comedy, but no, this is a Quebec-made comedy, which makes sense. French-Quebec, French-Canadian, like, I don't know what we're talking about now, but Les Boys, which is a sports comedy, which you can see is a sports comedy about ice hockey, and the story is that even ever wanted to know what guys say when they get together, this lighthearted comedy explores the male world through an amateur hockey team. Even every male stereotype is analyzed comically, of course, and well, that's pretty much all is. You can tell I've never seen this movie, and in fact, I never even knew this was actually a series of films because they made 3 sequels to this, and it was actually one of the most successful Canadian-made series of all time. And I'd never even heard of it. But then again, we probably don't. Then again, we here in America probably don't even know if these movies even exist. And even though I don't know, I don't know if it's available on Blu-ray out there, but I'm sure if you go online, you could stream it somewhere. I don't know. Like I said, I really do not know anything about this. I mean, it looks funny. It looks like a 90s equivalent to something like Slapshot with Paul Newman. But like I said, I don't really know for certain because I've never seen it. I don't really know if it's any good or not. But I would be surprised if it's not decent. It looks kind of funny. So yeah, that's pretty much all I know about this one, unfortunately. So that's Les Boys. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. And that is Woody Allen's latest film, Deconstructing Henry.
Seller about his best friends.
You told our whole story.
But when you kiss and tell,
If you want to shoot me, shoot me.
you go to hell.
Pause this. Serial killers, lawyers who appear on television.
Demi Moore, Judy Davis, Kirstie Alley, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Woody Allen, and Billy Crystal.
You want me to turn on the air conditioner?
Your air conditioner here?
Sure, it messes up the ozone layer.
Deconstructing Henry, rated R.
So Woody Allen plays Harry Block, a well-regarded novelist whose tendency to thinly veil his own experiences in his work, as well as his unapologetic attitude and his proclivity for pills and whores, has left him with 3 ex-wives that hate him, and he's about to be honored for his writing by the college that expelled him. He faces a writer's block, the impending marriage of his latest flame to a writer friend, and scenes from his stories and novels pass and interact with him. He faces the people whose lives he's affected, wives, lovers, his son, his sister. It's a Woody Allen movie. It is what you get here, and like really big cast in this one too. I mean, Kirstie Alley again, Bob Balaban, Richard Benjamin, Eric Bogosian, Billy Crystal, Judy Davis, Mario Hemingway, Amy Irving, Julie Kavner, Eric Lloyd, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Tobey Maguire, Demi Moore, Elizabeth Shue, Stanley Tucci, Robin Williams, Philip Bosco, Jennifer Garner, Viola Harris, Paul Giamatti, Arden Marine. Like this is a stacked cast for this movie. And the movie basically is just a kind of a remake of Stardust Memories, which is pretty much kind of the same plot. Stardust Memories I don't think worked too well, but it was right at peak Woody Allen. I think it worked a lot better than something like this. This is still not a bad movie. I'd probably put this in the same category as something like what we just talked about with Amistad, a movie that it's good, but you know this guy could do a whole lot better as a filmmaker. This is not one of Woody Allen's best movies overall, but it does have some good ideas to it. It has some good elements of comedy and good storytelling. And it's, like I said, it's Woody Allen doing what Woody Allen does best. I mean, this is what you expect when you see a film by him, and it's, for the most part, it does work very well here. It's definitely not one of his strongest films, but it is a film that is very well enjoyable. It's a film that, if you know what Woody Allen usually does with films like this, then you more than likely get enjoyment out of it. I know what Woody Allen does. I got a lot of enjoyment out of it. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie here, and that is Hugo Pool.
What does this phalloid have that I don't have?
Me. Hugo Pool.
I mean, Hugo Pool is a pretty quirky tale of a Los Angeles pool cleaner played by Alyssa Milano, I should say, who falls in love with this young man who's dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, played by Robert Downey Jr., which, now, 1997 is probably not the best year for him because he has ALS in this movie, Lou Gehrig's disease, and then a month ago we looked at One Night Stand where he dies of AIDS. It's just like, yeah, this is not his year. But then again, this was when it comes to that. But then again, Robert Downey Jr. was in the midst of his serious drug addiction at this point, and you could tell from those clips there, he's thin, pale, sickly. And he delivers his lines in bursts of manic energy. It's definitely you definitely see it in even in that little clip there. But in the full trailer, you see that in full force. And stacked cast again: Alyssa Milano, Patrick Dempsey, Kathy Moriarty, Robert Downey Jr., Richard Lewis, Malcolm McDowell, Sean Penn. I mean, a phenomenal cast in here. But I don't really know too much about this movie. I don't know if it's any good. But from the clips that I've seen, just from that trailer alone, I don't know. I don't know if it's probably one I really need to see. And the reviews for it have not been the strongest. But directed by I don't know if I mentioned it, but it's directed by Robert Downey Jr.'s father, Robert Downey Sr., who also did stuff like Putney Swope, Pound, Up the Academy. Like, he did all these other movies, and he did a really good documentary a couple of years ago before he died with Robert Downey Jr. I think it was Senior is what it was called, and it's actually really good. It came out on Netflix not too long ago, and I definitely recommend checking that out. But as far as this goes, I don't know if it's any good or not, so I don't know if I really want to rush out and see it. Maybe if I find it somewhere at a decent price, like, well, I'm not spending a whole lot of money on it, I probably could watch it, but I have no real interest in watching it right now. So that's Hugo Pool. So with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and we've got 6 more movies to look at next time around, including a certain boat movie that stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, directed by James Cameron, you know, that guy that did True Lies and Terminator. A lot of money is riding on this film. I don't think it's gonna do well, but we'll eventually talk about this Titanic movie that's coming out next week. But forget Titanic. The next James Bond movie comes out. The Pierce Brosnan's follow-up to GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies. We also have a comedy with Nathan Lane and Lee Evans, Mouse Hunt. The Apostle, Will It Snow for Christmas, and Guy. So 6 movies to look at next time around, and we will delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more from this channel. So with that said, thank you very much for watching. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.